Okay, so we're gonna make some brownies. So the first thing you want to do is set your oven to 350. Okay, all right, and here's our recipe that we are working with. And I have a bunch of ingredients here. Okay, so we're gonna have 2 cups of sugar, and I just set my cup right in here because it saves on mess. And as you can see, I'm using a glass saucepan for my mixing bowl due to my mom's limited supply of things to cook and bake with. That is all right. Okay, I'm gonna have to open a new bag of sugar. And so 2 cups of sugar. Oops. This may be less than exact measurement, but goodness. Okay, and then we're gonna put 1 3/4 cup of flour. So we've got our flour here. Put a whole cup in. And when I was in Papua New Guinea and my aunt was trying to teach me how to cook, she was the person that actually measures things. So she said you're supposed to get a table knife and like into there so that it's like exact. But of course I don't do that because my mom doesn't even measure anything a lot of the times. And so 1 3/4 cup, you're gonna use the 1 cup, and then you're gonna use the 1/2 cup, and then you're gonna use the 1/4 cup. My mom cooks like a Mexican or an Asian mom. So when I first got married the first time, that just did not sit well with my kids' dad, because he was like, he said to me, how is anything ever going to turn out the same twice if you don't measure it? And I was like, is that important? Is it supposed to turn out the same way twice? Apparently it was to him. So I started measuring things because I was like that. And now I use a lot of recipes, so I do measure a lot of things, but there's still some things that I don't measure because they're probably things that my mom taught me how to cook, and there aren't any measurements other than eyeing it. Okay, so this is a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, which, as you can tell, I used the 1/4 cup twice because it's a really tiny little place to put your cup in. And then you gotta have 5 eggs. That means that the oven is hot, because some people think that's important. It is ready for me to put this stuff in there. I don't know if you can see anything I'm doing. Apparently not, because this thing is in the way. But anyways, need a bigger counter space. That's 4. And 1 more. Okay. And so I'm gonna put this in the fridge. All right. So you can see that we have our farm fresh eggs. That's what we're looking at, farm fresh eggs. And 1 cup of oil. So I haven't figured out how to do this, but we're just gonna play it by ear. I do actually have an iPhone holder, which I should probably get out, but then you have to figure out where to set it and how to set it up. It's kind of a thing. Okay, so a cup of oil and a teaspoon of vanilla, which I'm not gonna bother to get the teaspoons out because my mom told me that the lid holds a teaspoon. Of course, all the lids are different sizes, so I'm not sure how that works, but I just believe her because actually that wasn't a full thing. This isn't an exact science when it comes to vanilla. I feel that you just put some in and it flavors it. All right, so now we're gonna mix this up. I have put in all of the ingredients except for the chocolate chips because that is going to be sprinkled on the top at the end. So, I'm making a mess. That happens sometimes. So I'm going to stir this and I'll be back. All right, so this is what it's going to look like after you hand mix it. Mix it by hand, it specifically says in the recipe, which you can see why you would need to do that because it is very thick. There have been times in my life when I had an electric hand mixer, but I usually end up stirring things by hand anyways because I'm too lazy to mess with getting it out, putting it together, plugging it in, and having to clean the pieces afterwards. But this is a mixing by hand. And then, so you're supposed to put it in a greased pan. So we have this handy spray, which is awesome. But if you don't have that, you can just, I'm making a mess on the counter. If you don't have that, you can just rub it with some butter, and that's just as good. And then we're just gonna dump this in here, but I need both hands for that. I don't know if you need to see this, but I'm just gonna dump it in here. Try to get it everywhere because it's very thick and you just want it to get evenly spread over the whole pan as much as possible. Get it in the corners because it's not going to spread very well once you get in there. I guess I could have put that where you would have seen it better, maybe. And oh, I got a little sugar in there that didn't get mixed in very well. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna put these chocolate chips on, but it calls for 1 cup of chocolate chips, which is, I think, about half of the bag, maybe, if you have a 12-ounce bag. But I still measure just in case, because it is a lot of chocolate chips. Yeah. So I mentioned how my mom doesn't measure anything, and when she there's not really a recipe a lot of times. She used to tell us how much something to put if it was a liquid thing. She would take her hand and she would just be like, shh. That's how she would tell us how much to put in. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of like Mexican and like Lao American, different people like that talk about how their moms cook, and I'm like, and a lot of things that their moms do, and I totally relate to them. And I think it's not so much a race thing as a socioeconomic thing. Because I don't think my mom had the money to actually have measuring utensils. And so, yep, that is the other cup that was left in there. I think she just didn't have the money to have actual measuring utensils, and we used to use just like her little teacups and just eye it about how much of a cup. And we just used our regular spoons that we used at the table for teaspoons and tablespoons, big ones and the small ones. But so you just scatter these on the top of, yeah, a lot of the things that I relate to is just kind of people that are in survival mode. They just do what they can with what they have, where they are, because that's what you gotta do. All right, so then I usually try to make sure that the spots that don't have chocolate get some, because they never quite come out even. And you just kind of do that a little bit. It's not an exact science, but I just like there to be chocolate everywhere, because that's what makes it so good. All right. Let's try to put it where there isn't any. And okay, now we're gonna put this in the oven. I think I got too much spray in, but I think it's fine. And our oven is hot and ready. And there we go. And you bake it for a half an hour. All right, so it has been a half an hour. So it's a little crowded in here, but at this point, what you want to do is pull it out a little bit so you can poke a toothpick in and make sure that it is truly done. And so there you have it. It is done. I've never not had it be done after half an hour, but when you first use an oven, you should check, because every oven is a little different. But I always check it anyways, just to make sure it's done. If it comes out clean like this, that means that it's done. If there's like wet cake sticking to it, then that means that it is not done. And you want to stick that in the middle so you can make sure that the middle is done, because if any part of it's going to be undone, it's probably going to be the middle. And so here we have our dump brownies, and I'm just going to let it cool for a little while, and then I'm going to cut and have some. So I hope this helps you guys, and enjoy.